Want candy? Want candy now?
What's going on, everybody? Nazarachi coming back at you a couple days late, but I still felt like fulfilling both banners of the Final Fantasy V event with good reviews here. So, we are a little late, but we're going to check out the second banner of the 4-as-1 Final Fantasy V event. This banner is totally overshadowed by the hype of the first banner and all the up-and-coming events as well. I personally don't recommend pulling on this banner myself, but there are some interesting things on it. It's just with Final Fantasy IV coming next with some really good stuff for Edge and Paladin Cecil, as well as Rubicant, who's got some interesting mechanics going on. But then you'll also have the Final Fantasy VI for Shadow coming up beyond that. His USB is amazingly good, and he definitely is very relevant in the ninja sphere of characters on Record Keeper. And then after that, we will have the 30th anniversary. So I honestly recommend saving most, if not all, of your supplies for the 30 Fest. Maybe consider swinging a few pulls on Final Fantasy IV or 6. They always put Final Fantasy VI events, it seems, during fests, so you never get a good opportunity to draw on them and not miss out on stuff on a festival. So with that being said, that's kind of all the news and the updates I currently have right now. Let's check out this Relic banner here. Again, lots of returning stuff on it. The main highlight Relic on this banner is new, but the other one is going to be a returning one here. So let's check things out here. We do have the Neo Grand Cross Whale Whisker for ExDeath here. It's going to be a USB. Got 77 attack, 168 magic, 140 mind. Synergy bonus only, unfortunately, but you do get that boosted dark damage during 5 events. There will be other dark gear that you can make good use of after you've mastered this for that dark bonus right there. So not too concerned with that. The USB Neo Grand Cross here, 6 magic, dark, and non-elemental attacks to all targets. Temporarily absorb enemy black magic and white magic abilities cast on the user to restore 1 ability use. And raise the magic and mind of all allies a moderate amount. So, starting from the bottom here, it's got the same buff that Mog's BSB has on it, which I've found to have been a great stacking buff for mage-based teams. It'll also help out your healers, and as well, some of the buff duration you're going to get with that enhanced mind stat. Other than that, it's kind of just an upgraded version of his Super Soul Break. And with that being said, that's kind of what Ultra Soul Breaks are intended to be, kind of the better version of Super Soul Breaks. That's really all that we're getting out of this one. He does have the Super Soul Break that can absorb enemy black magic. I don't know if that one features white magic, but not too many enemies cast white magic on the party. There are some, but not very many. You'll get stuff like slow, so he can absorb stuff like slow and things like that. So you will have that very useful effect that currently, I believe only Celis has that effect as well in the game at this point. So he is useful for that reason alone. The 6 attacks, nothing crazy there, and there is no EX mode on this one. So it is just kind of an upgraded Super Soul Break, nothing too crazy. I would assume it's sitting right around a 1%, maybe like 0.8% chance to pull that. Next item here is Bartz's returning OSB. It is 166 attack and no bonus effects, so doesn't really stand out as an amazing stat stick, but it'll be good for synergy damage in Final Fantasy V events for sure. Massive ranged physical water, wind, fire, earth damage to 1 target. Can break the damage cap. It's just a little average, maybe a little bit above average, because it does feature all 4 of those elements. So you will be able to make good versatility of these 4 effects here when dealing with different dungeons and different requirements. Other than that, there are no modifiers on it, so it doesn't really have anything that can really boost it up other than elemental imperils or having end wind and earth, something like that on Bartz. So the Soul Break itself can't be boosted, but it does synergize well with quite a few of his BSBs, so you will be able to pull bonus damage from that, and that does make it a little bit above average. Bartz as well, being such a powerful character that he is, makes this a good move to kind of finish out his repertoire, give him the ability to do the finishing move. But with his USB and BSB combos, you'll likely be able to outdamage this OSB by itself here with just spamming EX mode. This is definitely the case if you have Cloud's USB on Roaming Warrior for him to cast. There'll be no point to really using the OSB in that situation, but it does exist. It serves to give, you know, mastery stat points and to have just kind of like a good finishing move for him. And as well, the animation on this one is quite cool, so I do like it. Next up here, we have the Mimic's Rod for Gogo. We're going to have 55 attack, 132 magic, 105 mind, small boost to water damage. That does make this a really good relic right here. There's not very many plus water relics in the game, and for this one to be applicable to any mage really that wants to use it, that's, you know, slinging water damage around, you know, Terra can make good use of this, or Strago in Final Fantasy V, so this is definitely a really good relic itself. The BSB on it's quite interesting. You do have Deep Aqua Breath, 6 magic water non-elemental attacks to all targets, temporarily infuse the user with the power of water, and grant haste burst mode to the user. So it's good for a water entry effect. Again, there's not very many of those in the game, and even less when it comes to magic based. So it's good to see some of that. This Burst Command 1 here, Way of the Mimic, is what really makes this kind of a standout BSB. You mimic the previous ally's action, effective for most actions. The more times Way of the Mimic is used, the shorter its delay, up to 11 times. So you're going to have to do some proper planning for this. Stuff like summoning Valley Garmonda or casting Meltdown and then following it up with Way of the Mimic is a great way to make good use of this ability here. Unfortunately, it will not mimic Soul Break entries. So if you cast like Orlando's OSB and then try and mimic it with this, it's not going to work. It's just going to give you kind of a generic attack instead. Or it's going to mimic the last action before the unmimicable one. So keep that in mind. You're going to have to do some proper strategy with this. I really wish it did mimic, you know, USBs, OSBs, whatever. That would make this actually a very, very good BSB, and it would make Gogo a much better character than he is. You know, if you could mimic an Orlando OSB with a second Orlando OSB, and then set it up so you heal, buff, or something, you know, and then get it so that you have a good rotation of soul breaks to copy, it would be a lot better. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work that way. But you do have the 4 magic water non-elemental attacks to one enemy in case you're using this for water synergy, or if the mimic is not really the favorable option, you do have a reasonably good water DPS command here as well. So it's a good BSB. I definitely want it just based off of how interesting it is, and as well for the plus water rod. But other than that, it's not really, you know, something that's going to probably end up on your A team. Next up, we have another old relic, Sledgehammer here. It's the BSB for Galef. 131 attack, no other stats, no bonus effects. And the BSB Sweet Sorrow. 6 physical fire and earth attacks to one target, temporarily lower its resistance to fire, and grant haste burst mode from the user. You do have Galef's Endfire Super Soul Break on the first banner, so this will complement that. You can Endfire, use that SSB, and then lead into this BSB here for some reasonably good monk fire damage. You also get the Fire Imperil, which is probably one of the better parts of this entry right here. It's a good Imperil to have, something that you might want to throw on for your physical fire team. You can stack that with Sabin, who's another monk fire user, and honestly, plenty of other characters in the game can make good use of that. Throw Terra on the team as well. You got VV, you got plenty of fire users that can make good use of that right there. Burst abilities: Leeching Blow, 4 physical fire earth attacks to one target, and restore a small amount of HP to one ally. They are healed for proportional to their max HP. It's something we've seen before, nothing stand out right here. Unfortunately, monks do sometimes have wonky commands like this, where they split DPS and healing, or DPS and some other type effect. Unfortunately, I would rather have seen 2 DPS modifiers on this, the 4 attacks, and then maybe a delay reduction, or a critical buff, or, you know, attack buff every time you use it. Something like that would have probably been more viable long term, but This can still kind of come in clutch if you really need that small heal, I guess. I don't know. The second burst command kind of suffers from the same thing. You have the 2 AoE fire and earth attacks and restore a small amount of HP to one ally as well. So this BSB is definitely reaching into the character of Galef here to see that he is like a supporting DPSer. I mean, he's going to be in terms of healing anyway. So you got that. You have the fire and peril. Makes this kind of an alright relic. Nothing that I really want to just go out of my way for and draw on this particular banner, even though I have quite a few other relics for Galef now. Next up here, we do have the BSB Artemis bow for Ferris. This would be the relic that I honestly would want the most on this banner, except for maybe the 2 6-stars. Artemis bow, yeah, definitely something I need for Ferris now that I have her so highly stacked up. 112 attack, 26 magic, 26 mind. No bonus effects, unfortunately. And you have the Barrel Serpent. That's my my face cam today. I'm inside of Sildra here. You got 5 ranged physical attacks to 1 target. Temporarily lower its attack, magic, defense, and resistance a large amount. And grant haste burst mode to the user. Great supporting entry effect right here. You can stack this full break with the breaking commands on her USB with the supporting burst commands here as well for more breakdowns. And you can stack that as well with her USB 1. So if you have the soul break gauge and you're able to manage all this, then you have a great variety of offensive breakdowns going on right here. Now you're going to kind of have to balance which ones you need for certain situations. Even her unique soul break, the broadside barrage or broadside cannon, I don't remember exactly what it's called, is a viable breakdown still. So different situations will determine which one you're going to use. Using both of the USBs and then a mixture of the other soul breaks is definitely a good strategy here. You do have the ranged physical damage to one target, lower its magic a large amount, and ranged physical damage to one target, lower its attack a large amount. So both of these are hard support commands here and are going to not really focus on doing DPS, but you will get those added breakdown effects, making Ferris an extremely favorable offensive supporting character in this game. I would honestly love to get that BSB if I were going to make a pull on this banner. And we got Galef Legend Materia here next. You have the Kenpogi, 17 attack, 115 defense resistance, no bonus effects, priceless experience, small chance for monk abilities to trigger twice. That'll work really well with his burst commands, and as well any actual monk abilities you equip on him also. So for Galef, this is pretty good Legend Materia here. You will be able to make good use of this if you are running Galef in your teams. It's kind of like my favorite Materias are usually the double or triple cast ones there, so it fits right in with that for me. Next up, ExDeath has an LMR here. It's his whole cowl or helmet, if you will. 17 magic, 116 defense, 104 resistance. I don't know why there's that awkward split there. I guess because it's a helmet and not actually light armor. But no other stats on it. You do have the minor dark resistance, which will come into play potentially, just depending on what dungeon you're in. You have the Legend Materia Born of Evil. Begin battle temporarily infused with the power of dark. This is somewhat useful. ExDeath is mostly a dark character, but he's also a master of magic, so you may have him kind of supporting heals or kind of just around for the magic absorption. So you kind of are going to need a good tool set for ExDeath already to make good use of this. Probably his BSB would be great, USB would be helpful, and some highly honed dark abilities to equip on him, which again may not fit the magic themed needs you have for him here. I would honestly prefer Galef's Legend Materia on this banner if I could cherry pick, but I don't think I'm going to be making any pulls here, so I don't have to really worry about that. Super Soul Break Sheep Song. This is for Creel. This was an amazing buff back in the day that saw a lot of usage on mage teams. Got 82 attack, 124 magic, and small boost to fire damage, making this a not super relevant, but still a relevant relic just to keep in mind with that boost to fire damage there. Can definitely come in handy if you need it. You have the Super Soul Break Sheep Song, haste, major regen to all allies, and temporarily raise their magic a moderate amount. Again, this was kind of like the magic version of Shout for the longest time. It's not as relevant anymore as what it used to be with all the USBs and other stacking buffs that we have to take into consideration nowadays, but it's still not a bad relic to have. It's got a little interesting sheep animation that's not too bad to look at, and maybe even just for the collection it might not be a bad one to have, especially if you're running synergy Sid missions and you have Creel and maybe another mage based team kind of thrown together here. So it is a good relic, not something that I would really want to go out of my way to get right now, but hopefully you can avoid it for some of the high-end relics on this banner if you are making pulls. Again, I would probably stress to save or wait for future events and the festival, but if you really like Final Fantasy V and maybe you really wanted Bartz OSB, I hope you get the stuff you wanted. So, Mace of Zeus coming up next for Lena here. 55 attack, 100 magic, 126 mind. No bonus effects. And the Pride of Tycoon. Restore a large amount of HP to all allies and temporarily raise their resistance a moderate amount. This is a great healing Final Fantasy V Super Soul Break here. Still can be pretty relevant for the resistance buff. You can stack that with other resistance buffs. And you do have the heal. Not nearly as good as Lena's USB, but it can work in tandem with that, and probably if you have her USB, you just kind of want to save your Soul Break for recasting that. You get a tri buff on that, a heal. I believe it may be instant as well, but don't quote me on that. I kind of forget because I don't personally have it, but I do know that it is better than the Super Soul Break. But you still might see in a magic-oriented dungeon some good reason to still maybe use this one if you do end up getting it. So, not terrible. This is ExDeath's other Super Soul Break coming up next here. Not one that I have. I have one of his other ones. But you have Enwa's Scourge here. Staff, 55 attack, 127 magic, 66 mind. Small boost to dark damage, which would be useful for any dark-based synergy, Final Fantasy V team building for Sid missions, and just generally if you're building a whole team of dark characters, you may get some good usage on that. You have the Super Soul Break Power of the Void. Deal 6 magic dark non-elemental attacks to one target. Temporarily raise the magic of all allies a moderate amount and their resistance a small amount. So this buff will stack with most of the other buffs we're seeing on this banner. The resistance buff will stack with Sheep Song because you have the magic on there as well. And it'll stack with the magic and mind buff that we saw in one of the previous Soul Breaks as well. So within Final Fantasy V, we have a good network of buffs here. Ferris is bringing the debuffs and the pain on that end, and I don't know. Again, this is not really a relic I would want to see if I was making pulls on this banner, but ExDeath probably would want to concentrate most of his Soul Break gauge into his BSB and his USB now if you happen to get it. Now, if you don't happen to get it, you might still see some viability to this for Sid missioning and buffing, so I'm not going to completely poop on it here. ExDeath is just not gotten quite the amount of relics that I would have hoped he had gotten. I mean, he has plenty, but there's not just a super reason to go out of your way to use him unless you really need that absorption there. Next up, we have the Mimic's Cap for Gogo here. Super Soul Break hat. It is a hat with 38 magic, 85 defense, 124 resistance, 27 mind. Get minor water resistance, always in effect, which can potentially play in with the Bismarck fight. If you need that water resistance, you can throw that on your healer or maybe a mage to get the bonus out of that. So definitely keep that in mind. Preferably a mage, but yeah, definitely the water resistance will help for some Magicite resistance there. So we do have the Super Soul Break here. Fantastic symmetry. This is basically the Super Soul Break version of Onion Knight's BSB. Haste to all allies, temporarily raise their attack and magic a moderate amount. So that's literally the entrance effect to Onion Knight's BSB there. You just don't get any burst commands with it. Again, another good stacking buff on this banner to kind of complement all the buffs and breaks that are going on these two banners here. It's a pretty good effect, great for Sid missions and synergy. And for the water resistance, you might appreciate getting that one for Bismarck. Now, unfortunately, I kind of used some reverse psychology on myself, and I made my 100 gem draw off camera thinking, hey, if I don't record it, I might actually get something good for once. And it kind of worked, but it kind of backfired as well. I did draw the bottom end Super Soul Break on my 100 gem draw. The last item on the banner, the Super Soul Break for Gogo, I did pull on my 100 gem draw. So not really what I wanted to see, but it is still viable. I will definitely make good use of it for the water resistance here against Bismarck. So I did come out with this one on my 100 gem draw. I absolutely do apologize that I didn't record it. Again, I was hoping that that little bit of reverse psychology would work, and it kind of did, but it kind of slapped me in the face a little bit too. So with that being said, I'm not going to make any other significant pulls on this banner. I'm going to save what little resources and the 1 or 2 gift cards I may have by then for the 30 Fest and maybe Final Fantasy VI, maybe Final Fantasy IV as well. I don't really know how to budget what I have currently, but I'm going to try and stockpile a little bit of Mithril, and hopefully I'll have some fresh pulls for you guys on some of these more entertaining upcoming banners here. This one is kind of just a lot of old stuff here, other than that USB for ExDeath. With that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode of Relic Review. I apologize again that it was a couple days late. Had a holiday weekend over here and had some interesting stuff going on, so I had to deal with that. But if you enjoy the video, feel free to give me a like. Definitely helps me out when you smash that thumbs up button. If you don't like the video, dislikes don't bother me. Any kind of engagement's really not bad in my book. And hopefully you subscribe and hit the bell so I can see you again on future videos. Until then, I hope you guys do have great luck on any pulls you might make. And this is Nazdarachi. I will catch you all next time. Peace out, y'all.